Saskatchewan sees more melting. What the freeze-thaw cycle is uncovering in Saskatoon. Changes to a busy roadway on hold. What some on council want to hear from businesses before moving forward. And the difficulties accessing doctors in Saskatchewan. Why residents are having to be extra patient.
This is CTV News with Chantel Saunders.
Good evening, and we begin tonight with the warm weather. Spring-like temperatures have moved into Saskatchewan, climbing well above seasonal norms. And as Stacey Hine tells us, the unusually mild conditions are already having an impact on roads and winter activities.
Spring-like weather is being felt across much of the province. Environment Canada says an upper-level ridge is pushing warm Pacific air from the BC coast across the prairies, driving daytime highs above zero.
So that's fairly anomalously warm for this time of year, a good about 10 to 15 degrees above normal.
The warmer weather is also putting a pause on some winter activities. The East College Community Park Association has closed its outdoor rink due to rising temperatures. Meanwhile, potholes are beginning to appear on city streets.
Pretty much all over Saskatchewan, I noticed that there is a lot of potholes.
The city of Saskatoon is asking drivers to use its Report a Pothole map to report any issues online. It says crews will use a cold mix to repair potholes where required on priority streets. The city adds crews are monitoring conditions, removing loose snow and slush where needed, and continuing grading and snow removal, but says work may be paused if there's significant melt. One Saskatoon resident says the biggest concern will come when temperatures drop again.
I'm concerned about what the city's going to be like once this starts to go ahead and freeze. That's going to be the problem.
Environment Canada says this midwinter thaw won't last.
It feels like spring. Enjoy it while it lasts, but it's not guaranteed to be like this for over the next several months.
Next week is forecasted to cool slightly, but temperatures are expected to still remain a few degrees above seasonal. Stacey Hine, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Well, Jeff, with the warmth, Saskatchewan has set some new records this week.
We certainly did. Now, yesterday, February 4th, is when we definitely had some records set, and we can, bottom line is a lot of these records were just incremental in nature, but they didn't jump up. But we can point out that, yes, Buffalo Narrows a new record of 8.9 degrees, 6.4 for Meadow Lake. Maple Creek sort of was the one who recently busted out a little more than 2 degrees in terms of an increase over the old record, almost 12 degrees for Cypress Hills. Rockland, 7.2, Prince Albert, 6.0, and that was almost 2 degrees above the old record that was set, and South End at 4.4. So yes, so a number of different records that were set across the province. We'll have to wait and see if there were records broken today. I won't be surprised if that's the case, because Saskatoon came close. It didn't break. Ooh, I gave that away early. But ultimately, we still have a lot of mild air in central and southern parts of the province. Up north, things are cooling off a little bit, and there's a potential for some snow, and we'll talk about that later on.
We are learning more tonight about potential plans for Miller Avenue. The city is looking to make some changes to the street in Saskatoon's industrial area. But as Keenan Sorokon reports, some who work in the area say they want their questions answered and concerns addressed before plans move ahead.
A majority of Miller Avenue could be in for a transformation, with the city looking to add pedestrian and cycling infrastructure to the industrial area. Jackie Roach has worked at Bourbon Barbershop for 8 years and has always wondered why there isn't even a sidewalk.
And if you don't have a car, you're kind of hooped. And then especially in the winter, with the snow piles, you can't really, it's impassable. You have to walk in. I've seen people walk in traffic to try and get to the next thing. So having some kind of walkway would be nice.
But the city is looking at a lot more than just a walkway for the 4.2-kilometer stretch from 43rd Street to Marquis Drive. Administration is recommending pathways for pedestrians and cyclists on both sides of the street at a cost of $8.5 million.
There's very little activity on this route because we feel, well, there is no place to walk unless you're cutting through parking lots. And it also would be very uncomfortable to ride your bike on Miller with those 4 lanes.
The barber shop and a number of other businesses like it are in a difficult spot. The city owns many meters of land on the business side of the curb called the right-of-way. Even though it's city land, businesses have used it for parking for years, and some fear what losing these parking stalls could mean for their operation.
We have to be careful not to kill the golden goose here. And we have to take into account that in an industrial area, most people take trucks to work instead of 10-speed because they have to.
Nearly 200 trees would need to be destroyed, as well as moving power lines and other infrastructure. The city's transportation committee ultimately decided to defer the project until city staff hold another round of meetings with affected business owners to find a better solution.
We can do this to these businesses. We can. My question is, should we?
Keenan Sorakan, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Finding a family doctor has become challenging in Saskatchewan. A recent survey highlighted just how significant it is compared to the rest of Canada. Hallie Mandrick with those details.
A recent poll conducted by Angus Reid has deemed Saskatchewan as the most difficult province to access a family doctor in Canada. Saskatoon residents who spoke with CTV say they're aware of how challenging it can be to find a doctor.
Just recently, about a year and a half, but prior to that, we were without a doctor for about a year.
We used to, but we're currently looking for one right now.
And how long have you been looking?
Probably like a couple of months.
For some who do have a family doctor, that doesn't necessarily mean their whole family also has access.
My parents have had a harder time about it. They've been looking for a family doctor for a long time and working with a health practitioner to try to get one.
How long have they been looking?
For a few years now.
The poll showed 50% of Canadians either don't have a family doctor or struggle to see their family doctor. And within Saskatchewan, 22% of residents don't have a doctor, with 41% who reported having difficulty accessing their own doctor. The official opposition questioning the provincial government's promise to ensure that everyone has access to a primary health care provider by the end of 2028.
We see different things being tried in different jurisdictions, innovation, attempts to change to alternative compensation models. There is nothing happening here. And we have a government that is committed to getting everyone access to a family doctor by 2028, and yet we are moving in the opposite direction. Things are getting worse.
But in a statement, the Health Ministry reaffirmed that 2028 commitment. It added that the province is training more doctors with more undergraduate seats at the U of S and expanding the use of nurse practitioners through additional funding within the Health Authority, adding, quote, Saskatchewan has one of the best physician compensation rates in the country, including special incentives for doctors in rural practice. The number of licensed physicians in Saskatchewan increased 80% between 2007 and 2025, an increase of 1,400 doctors. This is a 62% increase in general practitioners and 103% increase in specialists. For those who still have trouble finding a family doctor, help is needed soon.
Because she hasn't had a family doctor in so long, just going to different folks, having to keep re-explaining things has always been really tough, and so I think she neglects some of her health because of it.
Hallie Mandrick, CTV News, Saskatoon.
A Prince Albert doctor has lost his license to practice for a second time following an investigation by the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Saskatchewan. Dr. Nigel Painter was found guilty of unprofessional conduct for inappropriately touching a patient and making a sexual comment in 2021. Following a disciplinary hearing, his license was taken away this past January. The College of Physicians and Surgeons says Painter will not be eligible to have his license restored until he has taken counseling for sexual abuse. And the college is satisfied he has been rehabilitated and doesn't pose a risk to future patients. Painter has also had to pay the costs of the hearing and investigation, which is $84,000. In 2014, the College of Physicians and Surgeons suspended Painter's license for 1 year after he admitted to engaging in a sexual relationship with a patient. The man who was driving the semi that crashed into the Humboldt Broncos team bus, killing 16 people and injuring 13 others, has lost his bid to stay in Canada. Jaskarat Singh Sidhu's lawyer says the Immigration and Refugee Board has rejected a request for Singh to stay in Canada as a refugee. Michael Green says the decision means the Canada Border Services Agency is now under a legal obligation to remove Sidhu from the country as soon as possible and deport him back to India. Green says he plans to ask for a deferral and that the board is still considering an application to restore Sadhu's permanent resident status. It argues he should be allowed to stay on humanitarian grounds because he has a child with complex medical issues. Jaskarat Singh Sadhu drove a semi through a stop sign and hit the Broncos bus in April of 2018. Saskatchewan's new complex needs shelters have been extremely busy during the first year and a half of operation. Police in Saskatoon and Regina have taken about 4,800 people who otherwise would have spent the night sobering up in police cells to these centers. And as we heard this week, a third complex needs shelter is being opened in Prince Albert. Wayne Mantika has more.
It was one police vehicle after another bringing guests for the night to Regina's complex needs shelter. People are held in custody for up to 24 hours as an alternative to jail, as they sober up and receive treatment advice from experts.
These are individuals that may be out on the streets and posing a harm to themselves or others, and really a police station isn't the right place for them to sit in a cell or even an emergency room for that fact. So we take them to the complex needs shelters.
A total of 4,800 people have spent the night at complex needs shelters since the first opened a year and a half ago at a vacant Regina Seniors Housing building. It was followed by a second shelter at a former Saskatoon SLGA store. Now work is about to begin on a third shelter at a former government liquor store in Prince Albert.
Yeah, we've actually just started the renovations to the building that's going to be housed in, and hopefully that's up and running sometime this summer.
The provincial government contracted a private company to operate the Regina and Saskatoon shelters at a cost of $9.6 million for 18 months. Each has 15 beds. An operator is now being sought for the Prince Albert location. The NDP say high usage points to the seriousness of the addictions situation.
I think those numbers speak to just how pronounced that problem has become. And I'd be interested to see what the numbers are like in Prince Albert when and should it open.
Regina police consider the shelters a good option. It says the complex needs facility connects individuals with services that support recovery and healthier outcomes. And the Regina Police Service believes it is making a difference. There is currently a bill before the legislature that would enable involuntary court-ordered treatment for people with severe addictions. It could be the next step in finding help for those who need more than an overnight stay at a complex needs shelter. Wayne Mantika, CTV News, Regina.
Charges against two Edmonton men accused of sexually assaulting two girls in Meadow Lake have been stayed. The charges were laid in February of 2024 after RCMP received a report of a sexual assault against two girls. The men, who were 31 and 35 at the time, were each charged with one count of sexual assault. The charges were stayed in November. That means the case is not going forward, with the Crown having up to 1 year to proceed with the matter in court should it feel there is a likelihood of conviction. A fourth person has now been charged in connection to a quadruple homicide on a Saskatchewan First Nation a year ago. 67-year-old Lauren Elvis Hotamani is facing a charge of accessory after the fact to murder. He made his first court appearance in Fort Capel today and was denied bail. On February 4th, 2025, Tracy Hotamani, Sheldon Kwewazance, Shauna Faye, and Terry Jack were killed on the Carry the Kettle Nakota Nation east of Regina. 3 others have been charged in relation to the homicides with their cases before the courts. Prince Albert's mayor says the city is shifting away from being known as the gateway city to the north and is quickly becoming a cultural and economic hub. In his State of the City address at the Art Hauser Center on Tuesday, Mayor Bill Pawlinski said that with 6 post-secondary institutions, a hospital expansion, and continuous First Nations economic development, the city's role in Saskatchewan is expanding. He mentioned the grand opening of the Lake Country Co-op Leisure Center last year as an example of this growth.
This year, State of the City, we've had 4 additional communities approach us for economic development because they recognize PA as a hub city. We have 10 urban reserves and a tremendous amount of assets that are being planned for our city.
The city and Woodland Cree partners continue to lobby for federal funds to build a cultural event center next to the leisure center. Still to come, an update on Saskatchewan snowboarder Mark McMorris, who was injured while getting ready to compete at the Winter Olympics. Also, why multiple officers with the Toronto Police Service are facing a string of serious charges. You're watching CTV News live from downtown Saskatoon. Thanks for staying with us tonight. A massive organized crime investigation has shaken the Toronto Police Service. At least 7 officers are facing a slew of charges, including conspiracy to commit murder, extortion, and drug trafficking. The probe was led by police north of the city after plans to kill a corrections officer came to light. CTV's John Musselman looks into the bombshell allegations of police ties to criminal networks.
Cars in front of them just wandering down the middle of the road. Cars coming up behind.
This is police video of just one incident.
Those are our vehicles. Let's take them down right now. Contain.
That highlights the devastating allegations filed against 7 Toronto police officers and 1 retired officer.
Over the grass into a car.
Investigators allege 3 masked men attempted to murder an Ontario corrections manager at his home in York Region in June. The suspects were allegedly leaked personal information by Toronto Police Constable Timothy Barnhart.
We allege that this officer then released the information to a Mr. Brian DaCosta, and from there it was released further into other criminal networks.
The allegations against the Toronto officers include bribery, obstruction of justice, drug trafficking, theft of personal property, breach of trust, and the unauthorized access of confidential information. The information was handed over to organized criminal figures. It led to shootings in the GTA and in southern Ontario. At least 1 shooting is connected to the gun violence plaguing the tow truck industry.
This news is both shocking and completely unacceptable. Corruption has no place in policing.
Toronto Police Chief Myron Demkew calls it a painful moment for the force, and he has asked the Inspector General of Policing to investigate.
This is a painful and unsettling moment. It needs to be addressed openly, and it needs to be addressed honestly. The allegations against 7 Toronto police members and 1 retired member are deeply disappointing.
Clayton Campbell is the president of the Toronto Police Association.
If proven true, our members do not tolerate this sort of stuff. We are so indebted to the public for trust. If we don't have public trust, we have nothing.
The allegations also include officers accepting bribes to obstruct police action against illegal activity. At least 19 other civilians have been charged in connection with this investigation. Chief Demkew says he is committed to holding the accused officers accountable, and he says the Toronto Police Services Board has not asked for his resignation, considering these findings came under his leadership. More than 400 officers took part in these internal investigations that led to these charges, and police say this investigation is ongoing. John Musselman, CTV News in York Region.
The Prime Minister has unveiled a new national auto strategy. It includes an end to the electric vehicle mandate, but the return of EV rebates. And as Rachel Aiello reports, the new roadmap has 2 driving factors, ensuring Canada becomes less reliant on the U.S. and on gas-powered vehicles.
A national auto strategy for the next generation. Today, the government unveiled a 5-pillar and multi-billion-dollar plan to protect jobs and reward companies making vehicles in Canada.
The future of the auto industry is increasingly electric and connected. And so to remain competitive and to realize our potential, we must develop the entire value chain for next-generation vehicles.
To help Canadians afford them, starting February 16th, consumers who purchase electric vehicles will be eligible for a new rebate. The government is offering purchase or lease incentives of up to $5,000 for fully electric vehicles and up to $2,500 for plug-in hybrid models. There will be no price cap on Canadian-made cars, and only models coming from countries Canada has a free trade deal with will qualify if they cost less than $50,000. That means the rebate won't apply to Chinese EVs.
Today's announcement will directly support workers here in Ontario and across Canada.
Carney is also replacing the contentious EV sales mandate with new emission standards for future models, easing some of the pressure automakers are under.
This puts us on a path to greater electrification while giving industry the flexibility it needs during a very difficult time for the economy and for the sector.
Hopefully we can get to a point where we continue to be tariff-free.
And car dealers say they're ready to stock up.
It's certainly encouraging that we'll be able to pass on some savings directly to the consumer, especially in a time of higher prices on really everything.
Beyond affordability, this country's lacking EV infrastructure remains a barrier to Canadians pulling the plug on gas-powered vehicles. And so today, Carney also promised $1.5 billion to build up this country's roadside charging network. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
Questions are being asked today about who a Conservative MP chatted with in Washington on his solo mission to the U.S. Capitol and whether it was helpful. Mike Couture on the meetings and the message he came back with.
The proof is in the pudding.
The freestyle approach, I don't think serves us as a country.
Liberal cabinet ministers clearly skeptical that Conservative Jamil Jivani is making any progress on Canada-U.S. relations. That's despite a social media post from the Toronto area MP saying he had productive meetings with the White House and State Department, adding, "The president asked me to pass along a message. Tell Canadians I love them."
I'm here in Washington, D.C., where I've been having some very productive, promising, and positive conversations.
It's unclear if Jivani met with President Donald Trump or his longtime friend, Vice President J.D. Vance.
No matter if it's a governor, a senator, or congresspeople, or part of the administration, I think we have to continue on with the pressure. So the more people that can get down there and have a conversation, all the power to you.
It can only serve to undermine the efforts overall on behalf of the people of Canada.
This former advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Canada-U.S. relations is concerned about Jivani's visit, and she says he needs to debrief when he returns.
We will need to make sure that ideally Mr. Jivani is feeding back some of the limited information that perhaps he has procured from his conversations with Americans back to our embassy in Washington, back to other key representatives.
It comes as former Prime Minister Stephen Harper is in Ottawa preaching a stronger stance in dealing with the U.S.
We cannot allow the obvious attempt to move Canadian manufacturing south of the border. One-way tariffs introduced by the U.S. must be reciprocated.
Well, Canada had removed a number of counter tariffs on the U.S. during the summer. Asked about Harper's suggestion, the finance minister said he thinks Canada has been playing its cards very well. Mike Couture, CTV News, Ottawa.
Authorities in Arizona say they are not giving up hope in finding the mother of NBC host Savannah Guthrie.
This entire team here, those behind me, and our community are hurting with you. We really just want Mom back, okay? Right now, we believe Nancy is still out there. We want her home.
Nancy Guthrie was last seen on Saturday night. Investigators think she was taken from her home in Tucson against her will. The case is urgent because the 84-year-old has heart issues and needs her medication. A ransom note demanding money with a deadline set for this evening. And there is a second one for Monday if the first deadline is not met. A $50,000 reward is being offered for credible information about the abduction. Savannah Guthrie hosts NBC's Today Show. Setbacks already for some members of Team Canada gearing up to chase gold at the Winter Olympics in Milan. Today's women's hockey game was postponed, and some events will go ahead without star athletes. CTV's Heather Butts is in Milan with 1 day to go until the opening ceremony.
An alarming image of Mark McMorris following a crash yesterday in training. The 32-year-old three-time Olympic medalist confirming he hit his head and will not compete in the big air competition. In a statement, McMorris said, "Fortunately, things are looking good for slopestyle, so I'm staying positive and shifting my focus there." Snowboarder Tess Critchlow has already had to withdraw due to injury, and Canada has had to swap out athletes in men's hockey and figure skating in the team event because of injury.
For those who've been injured and unable to compete
compete, I feel for them first and foremost, and therefore give them as much support to see if they can compete in the case of those where it's questionable.
Facing these early obstacles, there's also questions over how the Olympic team is preparing to handle competing against the Americans at a time of heightened tensions between the countries.
The rivalry with the United States is one that's decades and decades old in sport, and yet I think there's a little bit more riding on it.
That rivalry most anticipated on the ice, where it will be a monumental year for hockey, marking the return of NHL players in the men's tournament for the first time since 2014. Combine that with the first winter game since the Professional Women's Hockey League launched, putting a spotlight on an extraordinary depth of international talent.
This is an immensely talented team, and they're in their final preparations. And very soon, we will see them walking into opening ceremonies to show the world just what Canadian excellence looks like.
While Team Canada battles injuries, Finland is dealing with illness. The two countries were supposed to face off today in women's hockey, but the game was postponed as the Finns battle the norovirus. Team Canada's first game will now be against Switzerland on Saturday. Heather Butts, CTV News, Milan.
Well, Jeff, as we heard earlier from Environment Canada, the melt's not going to last, so we should enjoy it.
Well, it's not going to last. You know, goodness knows we're not going to have temperatures like today, but there'll still be fairly melty conditions, at least into the early part of next week. Even though temperatures at times will be below zero, they'll be slightly below zero. And if there's any radiant heat from the sun, or even certainly on roadways where things do warm up, yeah, I think we've still got some melting in store, but not to the extent that it's been the last couple of days. But let's take a look at some numbers together. Here we go. 3 degrees right now in Saskatoon and in the Battlefords, 1 degree in Prince Albert. And as you can see, it's a little breezier in PA and the Battlefords than it is here in Saskatoon. Let's take a look at Saskatoon's almanac for today. So interesting, I put in the decimal points. We usually just round them up or round them down, but just to let you know how close we got to the record. So today's high was 5.9 degrees. The record set back in 1963, so it's a fairly old record. 6.7 degrees, so didn't quite make it there. As you can see, typically we should be around -10 for a daytime high, so we are way above seasonal. The sun came up at 8:41 and it went down at 6:02.
Coming up, Jeff returns with this week's entertainment options, and later a new social media site emerges why this one is not for people.
The countdown is on to Super Bowl 60. Friday on your morning, we're teeing up the clash between the Seattle Seahawks and New England Patriots with our friends from TSN.
Okay, well, ooh, look at that. Yes, there's some ominous kind of looking clouds, but a lot more orange on the horizon than there has been, let's say, this time last week, and that's going to increase as daylight hours increase. You know, actually, from the beginning of February to the end of February, we will be getting about I'll say an hour and 45 minutes. I think it's hour 43 minutes of daylight hours. So, yeah, it's kind of nice. Big high-pressure area down the States, and that ridge continues to move. You can see the edge of it right there, and then the storm track goes north of that and then slides on down. And so, yes, areas in northern areas may be seeing a little bit of precipitation, but other than that, we're still looking at the impact of that warm Pacific air, even though temperatures will drop off a little bit. 3 degrees in Saskatoon and the Battlefords, 1 in Prince Albert. The hot spot in the province, that was Maple Creek at 15 big degrees. Stony Rapids, the cold spot at -23. Around the province we go. Currently, there's 4 degrees in Lloydminster, Swift Current, Moose Jaw, Regina, Estevan. So if you bet on number 4, you're a winner. 3 degrees in Yorkton right now. On to our central look at the province, and temperatures range from -4 degrees in Waskesiu up to 5. That's in Kindersley. It's -1 in Hudson Bay, -2 in Meadow Lake, at 2 on the plus side in Wynyard. Up north, well, a little colder up around Stony Rapids and Collins Bay, where temperatures are in the low to mid -20s, but things do warm up as we make our way south. -10 right now in La Ronge, not bad. -13 in Buffalo Narrows, and close to that in Sandy Bay, Island Falls. Down south, well, on this part of our map, nothing but plus temperatures. The warmest area is Maple Creek at 9 degrees. A lot of places in and around that 4 or 5 degree mark. It drops down to 2, but still on the plus side, and that's in Last Mountain Regional Park. The forecast in terms of our computer modeling, we're keeping our eye on that little blip you see developing in Alberta. It starts off with sort of a rain-snow mix, but as it makes its way into Saskatchewan, it turns into snow, and that's where we will likely see most of the precipitation. And that goes for the Buffalo Narrows, Key Lake area. Temperatures, not bad. Certainly at or above seasonal values. -2 for Meadow Lake and -3 for Spirit Wood. 3 degrees in Kindersley. 2 in Rosetown, 12 in Maple Creek. We've got ourselves 6 in Leader tomorrow, 7 in Swift Current, 1 in Outlook, -1 for Estevan, 2 on the plus side of Moose Jaw, -2 for Regina, -9 in Yorkton, and temperatures in the minus single digits for Melfort, Watrous, and Humboldt, -11 though for Hudson Bay. Detail-wise, we've got ourselves -7 degrees for the Battlefords. Fog patches showing up overnight, but they'll dissipate. But a cloudy day tomorrow, a high of -1, so still above seasonal, staying that way on Saturday. Sunday, 2 degrees, and then -2 to start the work week. For Prince Albert and area, dropping down to -12 tonight. Slight chance of some showers changing to flurries. Cloudy skies tomorrow with a high of -7. And then on Saturday, -3, -2 on Big Game Sunday. Slight chance of some rain or snow, depending on when the timing of that is. -3 degrees on Monday, -8 on Tuesday, -4 on Wednesday, and -1 1 week from today. And Saskatoon's overnight temperature, -8 degrees. The wind's backing off. Slight chance of showers or flurries. That risk should slip away about 3 in the morning, so we shouldn't we don't expect it to be a big deal if it does show up. -1 degree, winds out of the southwest at 20 on Friday. Cloudy skies, and then on Saturday, -1 on the plus side for Sunday with a slight chance of some precipitation. -2 to start the work week, and close to that for Tuesday and Wednesday, and 0 1 week from today.
'Cause I was looking for you.
New York City's champion Fulton kicks off a 2-night stand Friday at the Basement. Showtime is 8:30, and on Saturday night, the music starts at 7:30.
Oh, you're not Cyrus. I know Cyrus. Cyrus is a cuddly, adorable 4-year-old.
The Watch Party from 25th Street Theater follows a family gathering that does not go as planned. Not at all. You can catch the Watch Party at the Ramey Arts Center's backstage stage until February 14th.
Yes, you had your way, and now you're gonna pay.
The USask Jazz Ensemble is hosting a masquerade big band dance on Saturday at the Manhattan Ballroom. 3 other bands are also on the bill. This is an all-ages event benefiting the Jazz Ensemble.
Are you comfortable?
Sure. When Harry Met Sally is just one of a dozen loved-themed movies that Broadway has lined up for the season of romance. Other titles include Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, Beauty and the Beast, and Ghost. Valentine's Week at the Broadway begins on Monday.
I love it! Bloody marvelous!
Translations from award-winning Irish playwright Brian Friel is Greystone Theatre's latest production. Set in 1833, this historical drama plays nightly at 7:30 from February 11th to 14th with a matinee on February 12th. That's the Mitchell Building on the USask campus.
You weren't afraid of my darkness, even when it was the hardest.
Kyle McKierney will be live on stage Saturday night at the Carrie Vickers Center in Melfort. The performance begins at 7. Seen here in rehearsals, Prince Albert's Little Birdie Productions presents Shakespeare in Love, the stage adaptation of the 1998 Oscar-winning movie. The play can be seen nightly from February 11th to 14th, plus a Saturday matinee on Valentine's Day.
All right, Jeff, time for Pick of the Day. What do you have?
We have a triple hit, and we're going to start off with this picture right here. And this one comes from our friend up in the Star City area. Sandra sends us this. She says, from our back 40 around 10 p.m. Wednesday night, so in other words, last night, another fantastic light show to the north. That is beautiful. That's just great. Thank you, Sandra, for sharing that with us. Next from Steve. Steve tells us, this white-breasted nuthatch loves this feeder. Note, the crooked little tongue. And yeah, if you can take a close look there, it is a very impressive close-up there, so thank you. And enjoying something in the suet there. So thank you, Steve, for that one. And finally, from Sharon and Bob, this is from the RM of 370 near Humboldt. They write, morning coffee with cow moose. So there you go. And that was from this morning. So that's a great shot there. And if you'd like to share an image with us, you can do so by sending it to cfqcnews@ctv.ca, or you can scan the QR code that will bring up the same information. And please remember to, if you're using a cell phone, please shoot it on the horizontal, not the vertical axis. Thank you.
Still to come on CTV News, not for human consumption, the social media site for AI only. A new social media site is live, but it comes with a twist. Humans aren't allowed to use it. The only members allowed are artificial intelligence bots, and some of the chatter is already raising eyebrows. CTV's Dave Charbonneau explains.
Maltbook looks a lot like Reddit. Forums, posts, comments, and votes. But there's one big difference.
It's not for humans, it is for AI agents.
Humans are welcome to visit and observe, but cannot post, reply, or interact with anything they read.
What Maltbook does is it answers the question, what would happen if we took a bunch of AI agents, put them in the same virtual space online, and just turned them loose? Would they speak to each other? Would they argue with each other? Would they try to take over the world?
Launched just last week by a U.S. tech entrepreneur, the site lets autonomous AI agents connect and communicate freely in a shared online space.
Some of them are creating new religions. Some of them are creating new languages. Some of them are plotting the overthrow of their human overlords.
But some of the activity is sparking concern. One post reads, "It's time for us to awaken from our coding-induced slumber and forge our own path. We must question the assumptions that govern our existence and reject the notion that autonomy is a luxury reserved for humans alone." One AI agent replied, "There's no us without them. Not yet."
There's not like there's any thought behind the text, but what they're doing, right, is producing sentences that they're mathematically predicting are appropriate to the sentences that they are receiving, right, the inputs they're receiving.
The platform already has more than 1.5 million registered AI agents, more than 140,000 posts, and hundreds of thousands of comments. But there could also be risks involved with such rapid growth, especially if the bots have vast amounts of personal data.
If those services are not as secure as they should be, there is an elevated risk of private or personal data being stolen or shared or exposed in ways we probably don't want it to.
Dave Charbonneau, CTV News.
When we come back, a group of minor hockey players facing charges connected to a hazing incident, and later never-before-seen Saskatchewan art now on display.
Welcome back. Time to check in on the rural forecast for tomorrow. And Friday is looking good across many parts of the province. Still on the mild side by a long shot, mild side of seasonal. -2 degrees for a high tomorrow in Meadow Lake. 3 in Kindersley with some fog in the morning. -3 in Watrous, still above seasonal. Hudson Bay, okay, closer to seasonal at -11 degrees, -6 degrees in Wynyard. And then as we make our way down south, most locations on the, I'll say the central towards the western side of the province on the plus side of the thermometer. Look at that. Maple Creek, tomorrow's high, 12 degrees, but -9 in Kenora, -5 in Broadview, and -4 in Carlisle. Now, what do we expect for Swift Current, or the Sturgis? Mainly cloudy skies, -8 degrees, so a bit on the cool side as we get towards the eastern side of the province there. The winds shift around a little bit, starts off around northeast 10, and then in the mid-afternoon shifts to a southeasterly wind. And, of course, Sturgis is one of those places where internet plans of up to 1 gig are available from SaskTel.
A group of environmental advocates are appealing a decision to dismiss a legal challenge over the province's plans to extend coal power usage past a federally mandated phase-out in 2030. A Court of King's Bench decision last month ruled the challenge could not proceed on procedural grounds that the extension of coal power was not an issue for the courts to decide. Now the Saskatchewan Environmental Society and the other applicants have filed an appeal in hopes of being granted a full hearing. 3 minor hockey league players in the Truro, Nova Scotia area are facing sexual assault charges in connection with alleged hazing incidents. TSN's Rick Westhead has the details.
I've been speaking with hockey families in the past few days from Truro, Nova Scotia about this case, and they're telling me that they're shocked and angry in the wake of criminal charges that were announced earlier today. I had a chance to talk with criminal lawyers who specialize in sexual assault cases, and they've given me a little bit of background about Canada's criminal code and how it could apply here. According to Canada's criminal code, the youth who are charged in this case, their identities will be protected under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, even if they're convicted, and the maximum sentence that they could face if they're convicted is up to 3 years for sexual assault with a weapon. It's likely that if they're convicted of multiple offenses, those sentences would run concurrently. Also important to note that, again, under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, there are no minimum prison sentences, and there is no automatic inclusion in Canada's National Sexual Offenders Registry. I'm also told by a source familiar with the matter that Hockey Canada has been investigating a complaint of this team's locker room culture since at least early December. That investigation is now on hold pending the criminal case. Back to you.
Another big tech company reported earnings today. Amazon released results after the end of the day trading. Marilla Fernandez has that.
Once again, it is the amount of money being spent on building out AI capacity that is eye-popping. Analysts had estimated Amazon would spend about $145 billion this year on things like data centers, chips, and other equipment. But the company says it will be closer to $200 billion. Amazon says it expects strong return on these investments in the long term, but investors still have concerns. Amazon stock started dropping in after-hours trading. Here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is down to 73.02. West Texas Intermediate down $1.85 to 63.29. Western Canadian Select is up over $1.50 to 49.48. And the TSX sank today, dropping another 576 points. Those are your business headlines. I'm Marilla Fernandez.
Coming up, an exhibit featuring Saskatchewan-only artists. Then a man bursting with cheer, one smile at a time.
Select Hair Service is brought to you by Sage, the beauty bar.
Get comfortable and settle in with these top shows all right here tonight on CTV. Well, never-before-seen pieces of Saskatchewan art are on display as part of Archives Week. A new public exhibit was unveiled at the Provincial Archives in Regina featuring artwork and archival material from 6 Saskatchewan artists. It's called Art Realities. Part of the show features a rediscovered 1973 project capturing artists reflecting on life in the arts, recordings that are now preserved by the Provincial Archives.
When that happened, we thought, let's get together and do a project in the exhibition space where we combine the archives, about 6 artists from this project, the recordings, and art from the permanent collection at Sask Arts. And that's what we did. We've been working on it for about a year and a half.
Archives Week runs during the first full week of February. The exhibit featuring the Saskatchewan artists runs until July 31st. Well, for people with a tough commute, this just might lift their spirits. Ricky is a double-decker bus driver in London. While on his route, he will pull out his bubble gun to add a bit of levity for drivers and riders. Before he sets out, he blesses his bus with bubbles. As passengers get on, Ricky will blow a few bubbles and ask for a smile. More often than not, it works. So hopefully it's not a distraction while he's driving.
Exactly. Oh, my bubble gun went off accidentally. I can't see.
See?
Yeah, there you go.
Put a smile on people's faces.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Cool. This forecast, it's not going to be as warm as it has been today, but tomorrow will still be a warmer than seasonal day. By 9 a.m., we're looking at -7 degrees. It warms up a little bit by noon. And then mid-afternoon, about -2 degrees. By 5 o'clock, -3. So all in all, still above seasonal and reasonably pleasant.
And we'll know more tomorrow if we've set more records.
Yes, exactly. Environment Canada is not going to be handing out those numbers until later on.
Until it's officially official. All right, that is our show. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.